Hi, my name's John, and this is why I advocate the Zeitgeist movement and the Venus Project. Pretty simple, actually, but let me explain a little bit about myself. I've been an entrepreneur, owned my own business for over 15 years. Um, I've been a capitalist. I was a very bad capitalist, though. I was a bad capitalist because I had a heart, I feel, and I kept people on longer than I probably should have when the economic crash came in 2007, 2008. I paid people 20% over what the majority of my industry paid people doing similar jobs. Granted, I was still doing okay, but I was trying to share the wealth. I was trying to keep as many people prosperous and employed that I could. Well, after struggling for almost 2 years trying to maintain this, I had blown through several $100,000, my entire life savings. And one night I was basically laying in bed and I had an epiphany, to use a good word. My epiphany was that, why am I doing all this? What is the long-term benefit of everything that I do? And the answer was, it was solely for me and my family. It was for nobody else. And yet when I had money, I was trying to help everybody else. When I didn't have money, I was in survival mode. And I decided that, I'm going to go back to where I was when I was 18 years old. And when I was 18 years old, I'm 48 now. When I was 18 years old, my life's goal was to be a special education teacher. I have a little brother who has Down syndrome, and that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people with developmental disabilities succeed in life. And I gave that up for monetary reasons. I was also a musician, which I gave up for monetary reasons. So I probably wasn't that good of a musician. But several reasons of why I advocate the Zeitgeist movement and the Venus Project. I did write notes, so please bear with me. If you see me looking up, I'm not thinking, I'm looking at notes. My first real awakening to this was when I went back to work dealing with the developmentally disabled. I saw that their care was based solely on money. Now, these are people who, in general, cannot care for themselves. I've heard idiots argue, oh, they should be aborted, or they all should be put in homes, or this or that. I think, well, that's a personal choice that people make. And these people didn't make a choice. These people had no choice in the matter. They were born, they have problems, and they need help. And I would see people who, one guy would have a $50,000 wheelchair, and the other one would have a wheelchair that was bought at a garage sale for $10. And yet they were supposedly getting the same amount of care. The technology that's available right now for people with developmental disabilities is outstanding. I mean, I just met a kid who actually uses a computer and sensors that take his brainwaves and put them into type, which is amazing. I've dealt with several nonverbal people, and all of them could use this. And he has this, and this is an incredibly smart young man who is probably one of the most severe handicapped people I've ever met. And he's an amazing guy, just amazing. And this technology is afforded to him because what he does is he goes out and advocates the technology to other people. I've seen devices that help people who can't walk, exoskeletal systems, I think they're called. All these things are fantastic, and everybody that has a developmental disability should have something that can help them, but they don't. They don't have it because of money. They don't have it because a state won't fund it. They don't have it because an industry won't mass produce it or build it, because there's no profit margin in it. And when you start seeing that happen over and over again, it's got to make you start to think. And why should these people not be able to live a productive life just because they can't afford the technology that would help them do so? So that's one thing that started to wake me up. One of the other things is, like I said, I have been a capitalist and an entrepreneur, and I was a very bad one. But the money that I was making was never my end goal. My end goal was, I mean, even when I was a card-carrying Republican, even when I was that, I was still very, very ecologically friendly. And I was raised that way. My father was a park ranger. My grandfather was a forest ranger and park ranger. I grew up around tree plantings and things like that. And so it's always been a part of my life. And to see the world being slowly destroyed for monetary gain with no consequences, at least they feel there's no consequences, always was something that irked me and turned me away from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party and the whole process altogether. It was always something that made me think that, you know, these people are all the same, regardless of what party moniker they have tattooed on their head or a little pin that's on their lapel. It didn't matter, because they all had the same goal in mind, and that goal was to profit. So with that said, the third reason is the birth of my grandchild. Recently, I've become a grandfather, and she is my world. And I look at the direction that the world's going, and I wonder if it's even sustainable to last her till she's in her teens. She's a beautiful little girl. She's smart. She's 8 months old. I want to see her grow up in the best possible world that she can. And I feel that the Venus Project and the activist arm of the Zeitgeist movement can provide that for her, and can provide all of humanity with that. And the more and more I think about it, the more and more it all makes sense. And when you look at things that don't make sense, such as the way the world is run now, and you compare it to the way the world should be run, you know, just what I always used to do was I used to do the Ben Franklin list. If anybody doesn't know what a Ben Franklin list is, you put your pros on one side and your cons on the other, and you always write them out. Boom, boom, boom. What makes you know, why should I buy this car? Why should I get this house? Why should I marry this woman? However you want to put it. But, you know, you do it in your head, but sometimes you have to write it down. When I did that with the Zeitgeist movement and the Venus Project, compared to the monetary system that we're in, and I did it with a resource-based economy versus the monetary system, resource-based economy wins every single time. The only cons that I ever see in a resource-based economy are the ones that would be based on the standards of today, not on standards of an active resource-based economy where it's already in effect. Once it's in effect, I don't see any cons compared to war, drought, starvation, greed, profit margin, the destruction of our planet. You compare that to compassion, psychological health, physical health, creativity, compassion, monitoring our resources. Compare the two. There is no comparison. And it will take you and I, because you are the Zeitgeist movement. I am the Zeitgeist movement. You are the Venus Project. I am the Venus Project. Jacques Fresco is a man who has an idea, and he's perpetuated his idea for the last 60 or 70 years, depending on who you talk to. Peter Joseph is a man who took the idea and made it practical, put it on paper per se, with the movies and the documentaries. So, but they're not the Zeitgeist movement, and they are not the Venus Project. We are, you are, I am, and we have to be able to portray that to people and answer their questions. And that's why I encourage anybody who has a question about anything that I've said, and I really haven't given any facts, because, you know, if you list all the facts, you just sound like everybody else. You're just spouting facts. Well, you know, I do have the facts, and I can back up anything. So if you have a question about a resource-based economy, actually what I would like to see is, as I did research on it, as any good, any smart person does, they don't just arbitrarily jump into something, they research it. I wanted to research the negatives or the cons of a resource-based economy, or the cons of the Zeitgeist movement or the Venus Project. The only cons I ever found was on the internet was religious and 9/11 conspiracy. Okay, those are the only two things that people ever tried to debunk, as the word goes. Nobody's debunked an RBE. And if you have a video that debunks an RBE, I would love to see it. And I would love you to post the link in your comments, because I would love to see it. I'm curious. I can't find anybody who has anything bad to say about it that isn't an opinion or isn't a conclusion drawn on the way today's society run, not the way an RBE would be run. And, you know, people's thinking evidently can be changed in a short period of time. It's only been a couple hundred years, and people thought the world was flat. It's only been 100 years or so when people didn't think humans could fly. 40 years ago, nobody thought we'd be in space. 20 years ago, nobody had a cell phone. 10 years ago, we listened to cassettes. 5 years ago, everybody listened to CDs. Now we have iPods. The technology is catching up with human life. And you have two options. You can either reject technology and go live in your Unabomber shack, or you can accept and embrace technology for what it is. And the whole purpose of technology and ergonomic design is to make human life better. And we have to accept that. And one of the major points in a resource-based economy is accepting technology and accepting the advancements that it has, and the advancements that can be done with technology without the interference of a monetary system where somebody's going to invent something but nobody's going to produce it unless they can make money off of it. And even though there's a better item that they already have, they're going to milk you for the item that they have in their hands now, and then 6 months later bilk you for something else, i.e. iPad. Which was ridiculous. I mean, you telling me they didn't have the iPad 2 when they put out the iPad 1, it just magically appeared in 6 months? Come on. You know that. It was strictly money. The same people that bought the iPad 1 bought the iPad 2. And so they doubled their money. They doubled their profit. And for what? Think about it. For what? Why did they do it? Strictly for money, not for the advancement of technology.